Got my wheels back, so it's time to put those on, put everything back together. Gonna have to start this thing up and take a good look at everything, make sure that it was just road grime on the engine and not actually leaks. And if it is leaks, then I've got to take everything apart and fix those. I was also warned by someone with experience at the Vancouver Island Motorsport Circuit that I'm gonna need tall gearing if I want to make it around that track without bouncing off the rev limiter the whole way. So he suggested, did he say, he uses a 14 and a 42, I think he said. I've got a 13 and a 45 right now, so I'm gonna have to put on a 14, and that should make it about the same gearing. But I've got 14 tooth sprockets here already, and I can just slap one of those in there, and hopefully the chain is long enough, but I'm not entirely sure that it is. I said something about the other guy having, I think, 42 on the rear and 14 on the front. And I thought I was running 14 and 45. I was running 13 and 45. And I was thinking for some reason that a 14 was going to put my gearing the same as his. I do need a 15 on the front to make my gearing the same as his, but our transmissions are different anyway. So I'm going to start by just putting the 14 that I have on the bike, and that way I will have taller gears. And test out the gearing with the 14 and 45 and see what it's like, and then I can always order a 15. But I'm betting there is not room for me to cram a 15 front sprocket into this bike with the chain I have. So it's kind of iffy if the 14 is even going to work. If I had realized I had a bigger chain here, I would have just taken this chain off before I did any of this. Smells like it hasn't been run in a long time. There we go. The bike is ready for some testing at least. Make sure everything is good before I head to the track with it. Still probably going to put a bigger sprocket on the front. Definitely going to change the chain before I head out on a track. I'm not going to do very much riding at all with that chain that's on there. And I did remember that I've got a box full of goodies, including sliders for the RC, axle sliders, and frame sliders for the RC to make sure that I don't do a whole bunch of damage if I do drop that thing. So I got to put those on before heading to the track too. And you may notice that I don't have the axle sliders on the rear wheel, and that's simply because that is all going to have to be adjusted again once I change the chain and sprocket. So there's good news and bad news. Good news is the bike runs great. I forgot how much of a ridiculous bike this is. It really hates going at a steady speed. The 14 and 45 gearing is interesting, but maybe not enough. I'm going to buy a 15 front sprocket just to be on the safe side. But this bike set up the way it is will do 100 kilometers an hour in fourth gear, and just kind of seems like it's about halfway through the rev range in fourth at 100, and there's another 2 gears. So I of course don't know what the top speed of the bike will be since I was on public roads. The bad news is it looks like this little piece of rubber is probably leaking a tiny little bit, just enough for there to be some dirt sitting there. So I'm going to pop this cover off and clean everything up real good and put a little bit of gasket maker on that. The real bad news is, oh, it's this side. I don't know if you can see it, but there's definitely fork oil down there. So the forks are leaking. This side is a tiny little bit too, I believe. I saw some sort of mark on it. Maybe not. Maybe this side is okay, but this side is definitely leaking. That's got to be dealt with. I'm gonna have to, well, hopefully I can get away with just scraping out the seal and it'll work properly again. But I need to do that today and then ride it again and double check, because if I have to pull the fork apart and change out that seal, I need to know right away. I don't want that to be a last minute job. So gonna try and clean the seal and hope that it starts to seal again today, and then I will deal with whatever happens next after that. So a little bit of a leak there that I'm going to fix, and then definitely a leak here that has to be fixed, and maybe a leak here. I'm going to pull the cover off and get a better look at it. There we go, got the fork guards out of the way, and the left side is clean. There's no leaking here, we're good. The right side, however, I think you can probably see that it's definitely leaking. So hopefully we can fix that without having to change the seal. Some more good news, bad news. I don't know if you can see, but it's still leaking a little bit here. That's the bad news. Good news is I happen to have a spare seal kicking around, so I can swap it out. More bad news is that means I actually have to. For the record, the bushings look good. Everything's fine. It's just the seal went. So just gonna put everything that was on there back with the new seal, and hopefully that solves all my problems. It sucked to not be able to ride at the track because of a leaky seal. Took the bike out for another test ride, and everything looks good. There's no oil leaking from the fork anymore. There's no leak down here, not that you can see anything without any good lighting. So it looks like everything's ready to go except for taking off the lights and the mirror and just having the inspection done. It should have no issues now. Everything seems sorted. So, you know, hit the like, subscribe, all that stuff. You know what to do.